In order to start making my self-portrait, I have to draw the very basic shapes on my painting paper. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with a large oval for my head. It doesn't need to be totally perfect. Then my neck will be just a little bit skinnier than the head, but not too much because that would look silly. So I just go in a little bit and I just draw these two lines like this. So not quite as wide, a little bit thinner. And since the shoulders, like we said, don't come straight out, they sort of slope downward. I'm gonna make them slope downward. And then I'm just going to have my lines come down here. Then once I'm here, I'm going to put a little line here for my t-shirt. I'm going to add the two ears about halfway down the head. And the last thing I'm going to need is my ground line, the line that separates the ground from the sky. So I'm just going to start that about halfway through my ears as well. So I didn't get too much farther, and I don't want to add any details because when you paint, you always start with painting the background first. Now what I'm going to start with is my skin color. Now in class, you've got two main colors. You've got a dark brown, you've got a tan color, and you have to figure out which one you're closest to. If you are a little bit darker, you would use this one, but if you're not quite this dark, you might mix it with a little bit of white, or you could even mix it with a little bit of tan. I'm a little bit closer to this one, but when I put it out here, I noticed that I'm actually a little bit darker than this still. So what I would do is add either, I don't want to add black, I would add a little bit of brown to it to make it closer to my skin color, because I'm not quite that light. Then I'm going to use a paintbrush. Cleaned it off from my last project. And I'm going to mix a little bit of my brown into my tan color. And when I mix this, I want to make sure that I'm always mixing towards the middle, because if I don't, I'm going to spread my paint everywhere. And I don't want to do that because then I won't have paint to use. I sort of like to keep it in a pile, so I always mix towards the middle. Still looks a little bit too light, so I might add a little bit more brown. And that's getting a little bit closer to my skin color. Okay, and once I use this, or once I get a color that I like, I'm gonna make sure that I hold my paintbrush correctly, meaning straight up and down. And I'm very slowly gonna go around the edges of my face. And the slower that I go, the smoother my lines will be. So I'm going to continue all the way around the outside until my paint sort of starts to disappear from my brush. Although I see it's getting really light here, and it might mean that I need some more paint already. So I'll add some more paint to my brush there. I'll also go around the outside here for my neck. And you can sort of see the black lines through mine because I used a marker. You will be using pencil. The only reason why I use a marker is because it makes it easier to see in the videos. And lastly, I'm gonna do my ears too, and I'm just gonna try to cover up those marker lines because I don't wanna see those parts. Okay, and then once I have my outlines done, then I don't have to be quite as precise, and I can just sort of fill in the inside here. All right, and making sure that I cover up all the gray spots. I shouldn't be able to see any of the original paper color when I'm finished with this. So I'm covering it up, and it looks pretty good. Once I'm finished with the face, then I can start doing the rest of the big parts. Again, I'm not gonna add details until the whole thing is finished. So for my sky, I might flip this over here and start painting it blue. I'm cleaning off my paintbrush. Now for this one, if I'm painting the edges of my paper, I don't want, there we go. I don't want to get it on the table. So what I like to do is I like to pull it to the edge of the table, then put it over the edge just a little bit, and then I pull my paintbrush towards myself. This stops any paint from getting on the table, and it keeps it nice and neat. So I'm going to quickly go around my edges like that. Then when I get to my other side, I just turn the paper so that I can bring this up to the side of the table too, like this, and over the edge just a little bit. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to paint these edges. Any spots that I missed, I can go back and grab and do the same thing with the other side. I'm always pulling it to the edge of the table. And then once I have the outsides done, then I can go ahead and go around the head too, because I don't want it to be messy. So I'm going to make sure that I'm holding my paintbrush straight up and down, barely touching my paper, and then carefully going around the edges, that I keep those lines smooth. I want it to look nice. Then I go here, and then I'm just going to go ahead once I'm finished with this and fill in the big areas, not worrying about being too precise at this point because I've already done my major edges, and fill in the whole sky blue, and then cover the whole ground green for my grass, and then I'll color in the shirt. And that is all I want to do first before starting to add my details.